Hello, welcome to Thursday night's Hotline live with Record Sport. My name is Daniel Caw. I'm delighted as ever to be joined by the one and only Keith Jackson. Keith,
hello, Daniel. Seems
how's it
like
going?
we've never been away.
I know. It's been a packed week, hasn't it?
Aye, well, you get a different setup here.
I knew you were
The
going to
home
do it.
studio's different.
I knew he was going to do it. For anyone watching, the telly fell on my head, so I've had to move rooms. There you go. We've got it out there. I survived though, so there you go.
Well, never mind you. What about the telly?
I know that's kaput. That's gone.
Oh,
It's gone
that's a real shame.
It's gone to TV heaven. But anyway, we'll expense that. I'm sure that'll go down well.
Girlfriend will be pleased.
I thought you've actually thrown me there. Dundee United.
Where are you now?
This is my spare room.
That's where you'll be staying for a wee while then,
I was
I'm
going to say,
guessing.
I can just lock the door.
Good.
Dundee United are playing UNA Strassen. They've kicked off in Luxembourg. Before we go any further, I understand, have got a Conor Coady exclusive update on the future of the Rangers target, which we can come back to in just a moment. But sorry, do you want to say
No. I was just going to say you caught up with Scott Burns just shortly before kickoff, so I think we should probably get an update straight from Luxembourg, shouldn't we?
Absolutely. Here's what Burnsy had to say not too long ago. Burnsy, thanks for joining us on the Hotline Live. You're obviously out in Luxembourg. What's the mood like? Dundee United confident going into this one?
Yeah, I think there's a quiet confidence that they can get the job done. They obviously go into quite a tight game with a 1-0 advantage from the first leg, so they're holding all the aces as it stands. So hopefully they could do a professional job and get into the next round sort of thing. But just at this time of the year, it's always difficult with Dundee United, they've only played one competitive game, like 11, 12 new players in the squad. It takes time for them all to gel, so that's where you've got your pitfalls so early in the season. But I'm sure that Tim Goodwin's squad's got more than enough to see UNA Strassen off.
The one thing that Dundee United will be without, Burnsy, is the incredible home support they had last week. I mean, some of the pictures we can show, I thought it was remarkable how good the atmosphere was at Tannadice. Has there been many Dundee United fans that have made the journey?
Yeah, in fairness, there has been. I think there's roughly 1,000 official tickets. The game's completely sold out. I mean, it's like gold dust out here. And there's been a lot of United fans scam on about for tickets, even asking the locals. But they're just like hen's teeth. They're pretty much gone. And I think there'll be a lot of the United fans who will be making the journey out to the stadium. It's quite a bit outside Luxembourg City. So I think they'll be hoping to get a sneak preview. But even the viewing areas around the side are limited. So they might have to go up lampposts, flagpoles, etc. to get a decent view. But I'm sure there'll be quite a few who are here who have not got tickets. But I think they've been advised to stay in Luxembourg City to try and watch the game in some of the local pubs and that.
It doesn't look like a particularly big stadium behind you.
It's not. And it's not even UNA Strassen's home stadium. It's their average gates. I mean, we're talking to some of the officials there yesterday. On a good day, about 300 people. Wow. So it just shows the size of this game. I mean, it's like 6 times that sort of capacity for this game tonight. This is only their second home European tie. They played the Cups of Finland last season, so they're pretty inexperienced at this level. So hopefully it's another one tie out again this season for them.
The only kind of down point, Burnsy, that I would maybe mention from last week's game is the fact that it wasn't more. I mean, obviously Zach Sapsford got the winner 1-0, but arguably they could have killed the tie off Dundee United last week.
I think that was Jim Goodwin's big frustration, is that they didn't have more to show from the first game, and I think there was obviously, when it's 1-0, you leave yourself open to a few scary moments, and I think if United can get the first goal here, that would be massive and just calm the nerves sort of thing. Because the problem is that, as I said, with so many new players, there's going to be teething problems and there's going to be issues, but you just hope that there's not any costly ones or expensive ones, certainly in terms of the European ties, because it looks like Rapid Vienna would be in the next round, and that would be a big game for United, so there's a big carrot there for them. But in saying that, we have had a couple of bad results in Luxembourg before with Scottish teams. Pedro Caccino's team obviously went out, and then Aberdeen lost their full at S, although Aberdeen did do the damage in the first leg. So hopefully there won't be a third team tonight.
Surely, Burnsy will get by UNA Strassen.
I would think so. I would think so. I mean, I'd be pretty confident that this Dundee United team will do enough to get through. If they don't, it's a real low point.
What's your prediction?
A real sore one for Scottish football. Although we've had a few of them in the past few years as well. But I think some of our teams in Europe, I think we are on the way up, and I don't see a Dundee United slipping up on this potential banana sky.
Do you have a score prediction for us?
I think 3-1 Dundee United. There you go. Convincing away win for a Scottish team.
I think every Tangerine fan would share that sentiment. They would take that right now. Burnsy, thanks so much for joining us on the Hotline Live. Really appreciate it. And safe travel home when the time comes.
No worries. All the best, everyone.
And we should say, obviously, that game's kicked off. It's still UNA Strassen 0, Dundee United 0. Surely Keith will get by UNA Strassen.
Of course they will. Come on, I don't have any room for negativity tonight, Daniel. Rangers have got the ball rolling for Scotland's clubs in Europe this season. Great two-leg victory over Panathinaikos, decent scalp. We discussed last night it perhaps wasn't the performance level that Russell Martin would be looking for, but the result was in the end what really matters at this stage in the summer. And I fully expect Dundee United to follow up with an away win tonight, which will be good for the coefficient. And then I've got my fingers crossed, having tipped Hibs to get a 1-1 in the first leg in Denmark. I'm backing them. I'm backing them tonight to get the job done. I'm not sure if they'll get it done in 90 minutes or not. I hope so. But I think we can have a real decent start for Scotland's clubs in Europe this season, and that makes a nice change. I'm hoping that the years of having to navel gaze and look at the kind of toesier shoes every time a Scottish club gets into European football at these early stages, I'm hoping they're consigned to the dustbin now. So a United win, comfortable tonight, I would hope, and Hibs just to do enough to get through. And by the way, what a brilliant result that would be for Hibs over the two legs, because Midtjylland are, they've got tons of experience. They see themselves probably as a Champions League club. So if Hibs can take care of business there, then it just gets off. It gets us all off to a flyer. And here we are. I'm excited, Daniel. We're only a few days away now, a couple of days away from the domestic stuff starting up again. It's back. It's brilliant, isn't it? It's brilliant. There's so much to be excited about. And I think Dundee United and Hibs have the chance to keep the feel-good factor going tonight. And I really think, I'm very confident that both will.
Well, the comments are coming in thick and fast. If you want to get involved in the conversation, please do so. We'll try and read out your comments. A lot of people mentioning Hibs as well, Keith. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But for now, Conor Coady, I understand you have an update on the long-standing Rangers target.
Yeah, it's been a curious one, hasn't it? It's been going on for weeks now. And we said right at the start, Daniel, that it was our belief that Conor Coady wants to move, and it's our belief that Rangers want to make the move. So it shouldn't be all that hard to get to an agreement. And I think there was a willingness from Leicester as well. Now, the information that I've received this afternoon is interesting on this one, because I felt the whole thing seemed to be cooling, or felt as if it was cooling down. But apparently not. Apparently Conor Coady's camp are still really hopeful that this one will get across the line. And apparently the reason for the delay, and I did say, Daniel, it felt to me very much as if it was Leicester that had pressed pause on it. Mm-hmm. What I'm hearing is that the new manager there, Marty Cifuentes, is the guy that actually put a personal block on it. He was only appointed and unveiled 24 hours or less before Leicester went away to the Austrian summer HQ for pre-season camp. And I believe that Cifuentes was the guy that said, look, nothing gets done until I get away and I assess my squad and I speak to some of the individuals involved. And so at that point in time, I think that's why everything kind of just stopped for a while with a potential Conor Coady to Rangers deal. What I'm hearing is that Cifuentes is now more amenable to it. I think there's a realisation that it suits all parties, and particularly Conor Coady. However, there's an extra kind of span on the works there, because over that period, Wrexham have made a bit of a push, and I think they think that they're at the table as well. The information that I'm getting still suggests that Rangers would be in the box seat if they want to press ahead with the sort of deal that I think was being discussed a few weeks ago with Conor Coady. I think that's still the one that Conor Coady wants. It remains to be seen if it's still the deal that Rangers want, but I'd be very surprised if it's not, Daniel. I think he's exactly the sort of experienced campaigner that Russell Martin will probably need, 2 or 3 of them sprinkled throughout his starting 11. He is bringing in a lot of youth, a lot of energy and a lot of potential, but that gets you, only so far. I think you do need some experienced campaigners around, and that's why likes of Joe Rothwell has been brought in. There's still so much work to be done in terms of what that Rangers squad is going to look like between now and the end of the season, and that's why I caught up with Scott McDermott earlier, who was at the second leg in Athens last night. But that's why, Scott will argue that, and myself, because I did say a while ago, Rangers fans are going to have to be patient. They're going to have to give Russell Martin a bit of time, even if they don't like some of the things that they're seeing in the first few weeks of it. I did say might need to get worse before it gets better. Scott's got a far more positive view on it. But I can see why some Rangers fans were a bit alarmed about some of the stuff they saw, particularly in the first hour of last night's second leg. But ultimately, anyone would have to acknowledge that just to get through that tie at this early stage, when there has been so much work required, both in terms of the profile of the squad and how he wants to change that, but also in terms of the playing style. There's been a lot of change, and just to get through that first tie, I think it's a big feather in Russell Martin's cap.
Definitely.
His tenure.
Well, you mentioned obviously Scott McDermott was one of the people in Athens last night for the game. You caught up with him a little bit earlier on. Shall we hear what he had to say?
Yes, and look out for him taking on liquids. Scott, where in the world are you?
Well, Jacko, I'm at Dublin Airport as we speak, en route home, and you know as well as I do, when in Dublin, you need to have a wee Guinness. So I think I've earned that in the last 48 hours, having to suffer that heat in Athens.
Well, that's right. You've got to keep the liquids up, Scott.
100%.
Talking about that, how did you find last night? What was your thoughts on that performance? Obviously, a brilliant result for Rangers. Performance-wise, not so much.
No, the performance wasn't great, but I have to be honest with you, Jack. I mean, I've read bits and bobs of the criticism since last night of the performance, and even at Athens Airport, speaking to a few Rangers punters, they seemed kind of deflated rather than elated with the result, which I must admit surprised me. Look, Russell Martin's 57 days into this Rangers job. He took a team to Athens last night to play Panathinaikos, who were obviously 2-0 down in the tie. They're in their home ground, 40-degree heat, 40,000 fanatics behind them, wanting them to go for Rangers' throats. I mean, I'm not sure what Rangers fans or outsiders expected, other than Rangers to be under the cosh, especially early doors in the game. And could Rangers have handled the ball better and played out better? Of course they could have. And Russell Martin will be hoping that's going to come and it's going to improve. He said that after the game last night. But in terms of Rangers' resilience and ability to kind of defend stoutly, keep Panathinaikos out for large spells, and then the reaction to going behind. Gassama scores an absolutely brilliant goal. He's second in the tie, obviously. Rangers scored 3 brilliant goals in this tie. So, look, it was the toughest draw Rangers could have got. When Panathinaikos came out the hat, everybody thought, that's the one they didn't want. It's going to be really tough for a new manager, new group of players, new style to get through this. The fact that they've done it 3-1 on aggregate, which guarantees them Europa League group stage football. Honestly, mate, I think it's a massive result for Russell Martin and a real achievement, because for me, he's still working with a group of players that need massive amounts of work and massive amounts of improvement. And how many times were we on here, before the takeover went through, and we were saying, look, it's so late in the day, it's going to be really tough for them to get up to speed. They're going to
the odds were already stacked against them, you're right.
Aye, I mean, we knew it was going to be so difficult for them at the start, and I've written a piece for tomorrow kind of defending the manager a wee bit and making the point about Ange Postecoglou when he came in at Celtic. With a very similar kind of philosophy and a determination to play, kind of single-mindedness to play in a certain way. And it took Postecoglou a bit of time. I mean, he got thrown into a European game similar to Russell Martin and lost. Got beat off FC Midtjylland early on. He lost his first league game away to Hearts. And Celtic were all over the place defensively, trying to play out to the back. He then went and lost the first Old Firm game at Ibrox and lost to Livingston away. And at that point, people were saying this style's just never going to work. And look what happened after that. Before you know it, they were sweeping all before them and hoovering up trophies. So, look, Russell Martin knows he's nowhere near where he wants this team to be. He knows there's massive improvement to be had. And I understand fans being slightly frustrated at the kind of standard of attacking play in particular in these first couple of games of the season. But I think there's got to be a wee bit of realism. I think 57 days into the job to get through a really tricky tie and guarantee that group stage football is quite a big achievement for him. I
think that's the odd thing about this though, Scott. You can look at it and you can see whatever you want to see, whether it's like a glass half, empty now, or a glass half full. There will be, I think massive pluses for Rangers. The fact they get Rangers tenure, so much work to do in terms of personnel, playing style. But there are, and I think they're legitimate concerns when you look at the way Southampton struggled in the Premier League last year, playing this similar high-risk stuff out from the back. It's not the same as Ange Postecoglou, even as it includes inverted fullbacks. Different. And there was a sort of kamikaze element to Southampton's 16 games in the Premier League under Russell Martin. And there have been signs over these two legs. If Panathinaikos were more clinical, Scott, that's a very different outcome.
I think you're right, but I just don't think you can compare Rangers to Southampton at this early stage. I mean, Rangers have gone into this tie with a front three, with all due respect, of Kieran Dowell, Danilo and Finlay Curtis.
Yeah.
In 6 weeks' time, I'd be willing to bet those three players will probably be nowhere near Rangers starting 11. I mean, I look back at it, and again, I know it's unfair probably to compare, but I mean, Postecoglou for that first European game he had at Celtic had a front three of Ryan Christie, Odsonne Edouard and Liel Abada, which is a whole lot better than Russell Martin's having to work with at the moment. So I just think it's so early, and for him to be able to navigate the tie, and I get that Jack Butland's had to have really two really good games. He's pulled off saves. I thought the two centre backs, they could have been better on the ball last night, but I thought defensively they were excellent. They were really good.
Yeah.
Suter, I think I heard people kind of criticising Suter's distribution at times in terms of his long passing or whatever. I thought John Suter, the role he's been asked to play now is being the guy who controls the build-up for the back. There's massive pressure on that player, and
yeah,
I thought he actually handled it well last night in those conditions in that environment.
I agree, Scott. And the other thing I would say he is on that, he wasn't. While they're working on this formation and the way they want it to look, I don't think it's anywhere near what Russell Martin wants. And there was a lack of options for the man in the ball coming out from the back. He was trying to thread passes into Danilo. If he did get them 100%. Through to Danilo, it was bouncing off Danilo. He wasn't controlling it properly. Yep. So it made John Suter look bad. What John Suter is there to do primarily in terms of defensive work, I thought he was a colossus again. I thought he was a huge contributor for Rangers over the two legs.
You're right about Danilo, and that's the prime example of that front three. Hopefully for Rangers will look totally different. Danilo's not that type of player, get balls fired up to him with centre backs. Danilo for me is either a penalty box striker, or if you're going to look to play in behind. He's not a guy that's going to hold the ball up, hold defenders off. Rangers are obviously still in the market for a striker, and you'd expect something to happen before the window closes. And in terms of the two wide players, for me, Jack, there were times last night, and I know there was only a few occasions, but when they did get out, when it worked for them, they playing out, and they kind of beat that Panathinaikos press and get out. When it got to the final third, there was nothing, and it wasn't really. Kieran Dowell's taking a lot of criticism, rightly so, since he arrived at Rangers, but it wasn't really even his fault last night, because a couple of times he gets the ball wide right. He's not a right winger. He's never going to go and dribble past the.
He's a square peg in a round hole just to get through this tie. Yeah,
he's going to come inside and just play it safe, and that's ultimately he's done a job for Russell Martin over these two legs. And I think that Max Aaron's filling in at left back. I thought Aaron's really toiled last night against Pellistri.
Well, Pellistri's some player.
Aye, I mean Aaron's has filled in obviously the first couple of games of the season, and of course he can do that job. He's a good footballer, but Russell Martin has to decide what he's going to do at left back. I mean, if he doesn't fancy Jeffrey, then he's going to be in the market for a left back as well, because I don't think Max Aaron's is a long-term answer.
I was going to say, Scott, just quickly, do we expect more new arrivals over the course of the next few days before Rangers put their final squad together for the next round?
I'm pretty certain they'll sign two wide players, Jack. Right? Mikey Moore looks pretty certain to be one of them. The other guys linked are obviously Ant-Man and Raksaki, so it could well be one of them. But two wingers, and I'd expect maybe a couple more before the window closes, even after the league campaign starts at the weekend, obviously.
Brilliant, Scott. Well, listen, safe home, enjoy your pint, and I'm sure we'll see you in Hotline Live next week.
Cheers, Jack.
Scott McDermott there on his travels back from Athens and Dublin.
Never happier than when he's got a pint in his hand.
Do you know that they've actually discovered Dublin's actually the biggest city in the world, Keith?
Yeah.
Just keeps doubling and doubling and doubling.
Oh, man.
It's still 0-0 between UNA Strassen and Dundee United. We've had quite a strong response, though.
I've got a stick in my mouth there.
We've had quite a strong response to the Rangers game last night, and a mixed response as well. Let me fire through a few of these. Craigie says, it doesn't matter the performance as long as you win on aggregate and get through. But these ones were a bit more heated, to say the least. Jamie says, Martin's system is a nightmare. Some of these Rangers players are just not good enough. Passing is shocking. Defence is a liability. Henry says, as I was watching Rangers play, I felt that the team had no clue as to where they were playing and were getting no instruction from the manager. If they were playing in Scotland, they would have had a hiding. Something is wrong in the manager's translation. The team are surely not following his instructions. Donald, though, says Martin deserves all the pundits he got us through. However, let's be honest, Rangers were shocking and Panathinaikos were just as bad. If Rangers play like that in the Premiership, teams will catch on and it could be another season of misery. And just very finally, Keith, Paul Brannigan says, Celtic will eat them up. I'm honest in my evaluation in that game last night, and fair play, good striker both matches, and you'd be headhunting Martin. So, Rangers get through, Keith, but some concerned Rangers fans, it seems.
It's a mixed bag, isn't it? It really is, because on the one hand, there's a lot for Russell Martin to feel really pleased about. He's through, first and foremost, and he's got this safety net now of Europa League at the minimum up until the turn of the year. Now, that's great, and that's, when he first assessed what he had in front of him when he took on this job, that was target number one. And it's been ticked off. So that's good for Russell Martin. What's good for Russell Martin as well is that he has been really active in the transfer market. You can see what he's trying to put together. I've said before that there's a strategy to the work that they're doing in the transfer market this summer that I've not seen Rangers put into practice for a long, long time. And that's another big tick. He's obviously got his style of play. And I wonder... I've not been overly impressed by it, I have to tell you. And I mentioned last night, if you're a Southampton fan and you watched any of that game, you probably curled up on the couch adopting the fetal position because of the flashbacks you'd have been hit with from last season. And that's going to be interesting. I think there's a fair and reasonable argument that it's not going to look anything like what he wants it to look like until he's actually got the players that he wants to perform it. And right now he doesn't. Right now there are square pegs, round holes, etc., etc. So it's a question of how quickly can he get the guys in that he feels make that system work. In the meantime, I understand what he's doing. He wants to implement this, and he will implement it come hell or high water, even if right now the squad doesn't look the way he wants it to look. So as I said again last night, a change as radical as this will take time. It will require patience, and it will require a lot of man hours on the training pitch. And you can see right now that it's nowhere near what it needs to be. But there is this sort of kamikaze element to it that I'm sure will concern Rangers, because they got away with it over 2 legs against Panathinaikos. Let's not hide away from that or sugarcoat it. They got away with it when they did make really bad mistakes and were guilty of playing really risky, high risk stuff out from the back and not doing it precisely enough. They were lucky that they weren't heavily punished. And that I think even in at the domestic level here in Scotland, I think you'll get punished. I think most Rangers fans, if they're being honest, would have thought that Panathinaikos would be more punishing than they actually were. But you take the breaks where you can find them, and there is so much to do. It is such a big task. It has all stacked up against them in terms of the timing and the odds. So, that's a significant win, and it would be churlish. It would seem churlish to over-examine it at this minute in time, although I do think, and I repeat again, I think it's valid to say there have to be some concerns about, is this the way that Russell Martin wants it to look? Because if he's happy with how that's looking over the first couple of games, then there would be more reason for concern. The fact is, he came out after last night and he said he knows it needs to get better. I think it is different, and I think it's an interesting topic of conversation. Ange Postecoglou, a lot of references made to the differences he made to Celtic. Ange Postecoglou's vision for Celtic, I think, is different, and that's what I was saying to Scott. I realise that they both like inverted fullbacks, but that doesn't mean they're both the same. I think Postecoglou's style of play was a little bit more dynamic and front-footed than what we've seen so far from Rangers. And at times they've looked guilty of being a bit laboured when they're in possession, whereas Postecoglou was very much get forward. Rangers look more inclined to go back the way and to be more patient, and they call it a possession-based game. But there's certainly an element of risk to it in terms of trying to pass through pressing, and it's left Rangers, I think, a bit exposed at times. But again, I come back to this is going to require time and patience and work on the training ground in order to get anywhere near perfect. And right now, my assertion would be it's quite a long way from being perfect.
Yeah. I mean, West Coast Don there in the comments says fans will turn on Martin if they don't see any improvement by December. You said last night, Keith.
I'll get that.
I was going to say that. You said last night that you think, 4 or 5 players could still come in? Or that's what Russell Martin would want?
I think so.
I had some comments here asking about Mikey Moore. If there's any update on that?
Well, as Scott was saying, I think that one's imminent. We fully expect that one to go through. I think it's all been agreed now at the Spurs end. I think the player is happy with the idea, and for a number of reasons. I think there's interest in him from the Championship. If he goes to a Championship side, are they going to be a possession-based side? Are they going to have, in their home games? You look at this, how Russell Martin's setting up. I think it's 60% possession away in Athens last night, which was a surprising statistic when you watched how the game went.
It didn't feel like it, did it?
It didn't feel like it, but who's to argue with the computers and the boffins, right? So if you extrapolate that into domestic football games at Ibrox, Rangers are going to have a lot of the ball this season. And I think that will be good for Mikey Moore's development in terms of playing with a side which is going to have a lot of the ball, and they will require someone like him in wider areas to produce that little bit of individual magic to unlock packed defences. I think I can see why this move in particular would make sense for Mikey Moore and for Spurs, and obviously for Rangers. There'll be some fans out there that don't like the idea of taking another club's young talent and developing them.
I was going to ask you about that.
Without getting a long-term benefit out of it. But I think right now Rangers are where they are. I think they have to concentrate in bits on the here and the now, whilst trying to put other longer-term strategies in place. So I can see the sense in this from all sides, and I think Mikey Moore is one that could even be done, very shortly indeed.
In the comments, Stephen Jackson says, if Coady comes in, who's dropped? Souttar's been the best of our back four so far. He says, is it going to be a 3-5-2? I would just imagine Keith Jiga would come out for now.
Well, they've got a lot of games, haven't they? And
that's true.
Conor Coady he's not in his 20s anymore. Listen, he's as fit as a fiddle, but you need options. If you're and what he's trying to do here is basically rebuild a squad from scratch, isn't it? So in that set of circumstances, I think you would want 4 centre halves that you felt that in any set of circumstances you could turn to and hang your hat on. Aye. Conor Coady certainly comes into that category, and I think if that deal does get completed, he would start more games than not for Rangers.
Yeah.
But I agree, Souttar's done himself a lot of favours. I don't think Russell Martin was too happy to discover that he delayed his hernia up in order to join up with Scotland at the end of last season. I don't think that was a great start for John Souttar in terms of his relationship with Russell Martin. But I tell you what, if you're Russell Martin, you've got to be loving the big man over the course of the 2 legs against Panathinaikos, because he was an absolute rock in those games defensively. Yep, I accept. He's got a hard job in terms of if that onus is going to be on him to build everything, come out passing from the back, and especially if the movement's not there in front of him, which it hasn't been. But again, that points to a team that's finding its way, trying to implement the manager's new style of play. These things can be worked upon, but John Souttar's certainly played his way right into the manager's good books, I would have thought, with his performances over the last 2 games.
I thought he was great last night.
Yeah.
We should say that UNA Strassen 0, Dundee United 0, still the latest score. 32 minutes gone there, so we will keep you abreast of any big updates. Dundee United still 1-0 ahead on aggregate.
It's not great.
The other game tonight, though, Keith, of course, is Hibs.
Yeah.
Hosting Midtjylland after a really impressive 1-1 draw away last week. I know you obviously tipped 1-1. I mean, William here in the comments says, good luck to Midtjylland tonight. That's not the attitude, is it? That's not the attitude. We want all the Scottish teams through. Do you think they will get through?
I do. I think it'll be a hard one. I think if Midtjylland were guilty of underestimating Hibs a little bit, which I was kind of hoping they might be for the first leg, well, that'll not happen in this return. They are experienced. They're a very, very more than decent outfit. But so are Hibs. And that was the point I was making before the first leg. Hibs were going almost point for point with Celtic over the closing period of the previous season, Daniel. That tells you about what David Gray is building there. I think they've improved their quality with new additions over the summer. I think they've got a big season in front of them. And I just think this would get them off to a real flyer. I think it would be a terrific scalp, both for Hibs and for Scottish football. And I think it's achievable. I do think, I'm not entirely sure it'll be done over 90 minutes tonight. It might require a bit of a late one, a bit of a nervy one. But I think Hibs have got enough about them. Home support, the place is going to be absolutely rammed by all accounts. And Hibs have got dangerous players in the final third, and that gives you half a chance in any game, in any tie against any opposition.
I think I'm right in saying that the Hibs attendance for a European tie is going to be broken tonight. It's going to be the highest attendance Hibs have ever had for a home European match, which, is pretty impressive.
Yeah, you're telling me something I didn't know there, Daniel, but I certainly know that, the excitement levels are huge, and the tickets have been snapped up, haven't they? It's going to be totally rammed. So
your prediction, what, a score draw?
No, I'm not ruling that out. I'm not ruling 1-1 out. But I think Hibs can do enough to get through it in 90 minutes. I hope so. Just to keep the stress levels in check. Yeah. So I'll go with 2-1 Hibs.
I'm going to go 2-0.
2-1 Hibs by it, or 2-0, that'll do as well. And what you've got there is the perfect scenario for, in terms of the coefficient. Go away from home. If you can't win the game, don't lose it. Get a draw away from home is always a real good starting point. Hibs achieved that, and now just finish it off. Draw away from home, win at home, and Scotland's coefficient will be all the better for it. And if all our teams can crack that sort of formula over the next wee while, we'll be in a good place.
I think you can see Mark there saying 2-1 Hibs. I think it'll be 2-0. Rocky Bushiri double. There you go.
You tip him to score every week.
Williams says it'll be 4-0 to Midtjylland. Williams really doesn't like Hibs, does he? Craigie says 3-1 to Hibs. Let's see, because I think Hibs will get through this tie. I really do. And I think it'd be a massive achievement to get past, as you say, an experienced team like Midtjylland.
As I said,
they've been in the Champions League recently, haven't they?
A massive achievement for Hibs. But also, let's not forget here, if we're talking about the greater good of the Scottish game, Rangers have got our teams off to a flyer here.
Mm-hmm.
It would come as a real shot in the arm now if Dundee United, they need to get the finger out, by the way. That's not great. Half an hour in and they're still locked at 0-0. Yeah, that's not great. So I was hoping for a comfortable, kind of heavy, comfortable United win tonight. Doesn't look as if we're going to get that. But, I still expect them to win that game over the 90 minutes, post another win for Scotland's coefficient. And I'm hopeful, I remain confident that Hibs can do the same. And the more of that we get, Daniel, the better.
Aye, fingers crossed indeed. Celtic, Keith, I was saying before the show that it would kill for a Celtic line for them to do something, but it looks like Jemai Simpson-Pusey will be having his medical tomorrow before joining Celtic on a season-long loan. Celtic also found out the Champions League playoff opponents. I can run through them. It will be one of Basel, Sturm Graz, or Slovan Bratislava, or Kairat, Paphos or Dynamo Kiev, or Karabag and Shikendia.
Karabag.
Is that Kazakhstan?
Yeah, that's almost in Australia.
Aye.
Long flight.
A couple of them you don't really...
There's some difficult teams in there. These rounds are treacherous. And that's why, people can pick the Rangers' performance apart last night, but the bottom line is get through these games, get through them, find a way to win them. Mm-hmm. Nobody's up to full speed at this point in the summer. And Celtic having taken big strides in the league stages or the group stages, whatever we call it these days, of the Champions League last season, they want to build on that and they want to try and improve on it. That's the main aim for Brendan Rodgers, on top of what he wants to do domestically. It's always been since he came back for this second stint. He said as much on day one, Daniel. He wants to do something in Europe. He wants to make Celtic a more credible force on the biggest stage of all. And in order to do that, these are difficult potential opponents in the playoff round. But, having watched how Celtic progressed and grew in last season's Champions League, I think you would have to be hopeful that they'll be able to get through that and into the big league again. That's where they need to be. But obviously, and we've been discussing the clock is ticking in terms of getting reinforcements in the door before that tie. You would like to think that Celtic might have enough regardless, but it's not a risk you want to take.
Aye,
especially not if you're the Celtic board.
Why take a risk like that?
Well, exactly. Look, they're not doing this deliberately. I'm sure that Celtic are working on a number of potential deals, and for whatever reason, they're just struggling to get them accelerated. That can happen. But the prospect of being seen not to satisfy the ambitions of the manager in the transfer market and then losing a Champions League playoff match, that has got catastrophic consequences written all over it for all concerned. And I really don't think Celtic will make a mistake like that. They're too long in the tooth, these guys. They know how to run their football club. I can well understand that there are levels of frustration around it in terms of the supporters who were expecting everything done yesterday. I would also say that I would have expected Celtic to be in a stronger position at this point, just a couple of days away from cutting up in the Premier League season, Premiership season. But they are where they are, and they now have to do everything that they can to resolve the situation, bolster the squad, give Brendan Rodgers the extra quality that he's been looking for, and make sure that they go into that qualification double-header in a stronger shape coming out of the window than they were going into it. And there's still a bit of work to be done in that front.
It's still 0-0 between UNA Strassen and Dundee United. Rebel says they've missed 2 sitters, Keith. I don't know if that's Dundee United or UNA Strassen.
I'm like to think of, well, I don't like to think, but I'm assuming it's Dundee United.
Aye, you'd think
otherwise,
so.
we've got a Pedro in the bush situation on our hands here.
Thomas says, hope Pusey doesn't turn out to be minging. Listen, I agree with you, Thomas. No one wants to see that.
I think you should have vetted that, Daniel.
No, listen. We're all adults here. Get your mind out the gutter, Keith. Come on. I think that brings us.
I don't know where to go with it.
I think that brings us to the end of Thursday night's Hotline Live.
Oh, read before you speak, Dan.
We'll be back on Sunday, won't we, Keith? Potentially with an apology.
Maybe if we're allowed.
Potentially with an apology, but we'll be a little bit later, won't we? Because the Premiership is back.
Yeah. So we'll come on air. What, about 7 o'clock or something like that after Celtic's flag day. Big day for Celtic, obviously. And I think it was announced just before we come on that Paul McStay is going to be back at Celtic Park to unfurl the flag. So there should be a lot for Celtic fans to get behind and feel positive about. It wouldn't half help if Celtic could pull a couple of rabbits out the hat before kickoff.
Aye. Well, we'll see if they do. Thanks so much for all the comments tonight. We really appreciate it as ever. Hopefully you can join us on Sunday when we'll do it all again, and we'll pour over all of the weekend's Premiership results. Keith, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure.
Let's just go before anybody notices.
Thanks for watching at home. Cheers.